Good morning, Bruno. How are we?
Hi everyone, how are you?
And if you don't mind, please keep that applause going for Dorca, the organizing team, the volunteers. They did a great job. They did a wonderful job. And it's a pleasure to be here. It's really an honor. I know, an AI session. Crazy timing. But I think since I was here last year, a lot has changed in the worlds of us as engineers, as developers, operations, system admins, leadership, and how we use AI, right? We're using it every day, these tools, and it's really powerful, but there's a lot of questions about, hey, can I trust the results from these models? And how do I actually get practical hands-on experience with open source AI? And I think this is a huge opportunity, right? And that's what a lot of the sessions this week are going to be on, of how you can accelerate your code delivery, how you can scan for vulnerabilities earlier and automate a lot of things with AI and spend more time doing the things you love, right? So it's going to be a really fun keynote. We've got a lot of live demos, so I'm going to knock on wood right now so that everything works. And demo gods, hear me out. Now, let's go ahead and get started. And just please, feel free to raise your hand if you know what this is from. OK, sweet. My people right here. So this is Super Mario 64. This is the game I played growing up, my favorite game. And if you know about this game, well, there's a lot of doors when you enter this castle. There's a lot of worlds you can explore. And that's what we're going to be doing today for this session and for this keynote, is helping you to understand some of the different areas of AI, the training, the security, the programs in the open source world, so you have a better understanding and you can be more confident using these tools. And we're going to show that with live demos. So a quick hey from us. And we also have this little mascot guy who's going to be joining us, the DevConf mascot. And we're going to all be going through this journey here in the next 30 minutes. Now, a quick introduction. Hi, my name is Cedric. I'm an open source engineer. I'm a developer advocate, organizer back in New York City for our KCD over there. And I make videos on the internet about AI and how to use it.
I'm Chen, and I have worked on and supported a lot of different open source projects. I can tell a lot of stories of each of them, but I won't bore you here with the details. If you're interested, feel free to connect with me or Cedric on these different socials. I also have my Matrix ID here in this little cool LED, thanks to my friends. And yeah, so on Matrix, on LinkedIn, on Mastodon, any of those usual haunts. So feel free to connect with us, both of us. And also we have an upstream AI booth right at that corner, and both of us will be there for the most part in the next 2 days. So
yeah, come say hi. We don't bite. Promise. Let's take a trip back in time. Guys, I think a lot about the future, about what's next in agentic AI, quantum, all the technologies we use. But it's really stressful. In the past 2 years, been stressed out of my mind. I'd like to just take a trip down memory lane. Raise your hand, guys. It should be everybody if you've used AI model before in the past year, right? I was saying, I'll bet 100 Czech that the Czech crowns that everyone was going to raise their hand.
That's like €4, man.
Oh, I can definitely take that bet. Well, the past decade, right, has been, or the past few years have been kind of crazy, right? Vibe coding. They said we'd have flying cars. We don't. But that would be nice, right? Or maybe you're very fond of the past decade, right? Of cloud native, IoT, blockchain, if you're into that, right? Of maybe you'll recognize some of these little icons or projects here, right?
Yeah, I like to make a note about Google+. Who's used Google+? No? Okay.
Oh, that's a lot. Okay. Yeah.
That's actually more than I thought. I was a heavy user. And one of my friends actually did a social science PhD thesis partly based on my Google+ usage, which was kind of interesting. And kind of makes me think, like, you know, she went through every post, the responses, comments, did some analysis. I can't remember the conclusion. I have to go read her thesis again. But nowadays, can you just kind of feed all these into some model, and what kind of results will come from there is something I could try, perhaps. But since Google+ is no more, I have to get stuff from the web archive to make that happen. So.
Maybe we'll have a Carol AI.
Let's see.
Maybe you remember the cloud and smartphones era, Blackberries, right? Britney Spears, Windows Vista, MySpace, all of those memories, right? Oh, yeah. She's got the keyboard. Or perhaps you're very fond of the internet and software boom. Everyone had a guest book on their website. Columbia House, if anyone remembers that, or Amazon when it was for books, right? Ordering books and everything.
I actually ordered stuff when the website looked like that.
Right. Or perhaps personal computing, right? In the 80s, right? You could think of the early computers, the introduction of the GUI, VHS tapes. Wow. That's, a little bit of a throwback. But the thing is, through all of these eras, right, a lot of things have changed. And Bill Gates, for example, one of the pioneers of the GUI, right, after going to Xerox Labs and innovating from there to what we have today, kind of saw this, and he said, there were two things that struck me as revolutionary, right? First, that GUI having a way to interact with these devices from initially having a CLI. And the second, this introduction of today's large language models, the ChatGPTs of the world, right? But this, if we come back through history, it's quite interesting, right?
Yeah, let's kind of go back the other way. The scary thing is, as Cedric was going backwards in time, I find myself associating more and more with the stuff he showed. I don't know what that says, but anyway. So, from around the 80s, we have a lot of what we call character UI, so a lot of text-based stuff, command line interfaces, for example. And this kind of shows like a system where, some person is at the plant, finds out something is missing or low in quantity. He has to call the person, a salesperson at the office, who writes down the thing and fax it to somebody else who enters into the mainframe. Kind of, a lot of a multi-step process, prone to errors type of thing. GUI came about in the next decade or so, made things a little bit easier, more accessible. You don't need direct access to the mainframe. You have something that you can enter with an easier user interface and be able to kind of eliminate some of that error-prone process. Again, step by step with web connectivity, you don't need to call that person at the office. You can just log on to access that system from a desktop machine, for example. As we progress even more, everybody has a mobile in their pocket or two, and at the plant, you can just take out your mobile device and be able to log that resource need without additional kind of steps throughout. At some point, probably it's already happening, there could be like sensors and bots that can detect when things are low in quantity and be able to automatically process that request for you. We show this trend. One thing is pretty kind of, stark is that you find that there's less and less people in the graphics. I was like, oh no, we shouldn't be showing this. This is like showing that automation and AI is going to replace everybody. But that's not the point we want to make. Having this kind of progress in accessibility, interface, connectivity, it's really about freeing up the need for manual processes, error-prone processes, and be able to be more efficient and spend your time in more creative, more productive stuff. So example I like to give is we have nowadays, all planes have some kind of autopilot system. That doesn't mean that you don't need the pilot there, sitting there. It just means that it frees the pilot up to be able to, they don't have to do the manual, tedious stuff, but they still can focus on other things that make the flight more safe and smooth. So, again, increase in efficiency, decrease in errors, and then thus overall cutting down on cost.
Absolutely. And that's why it's one of the most adopted technologies, right, with getting 100 million users in 60 days, right, for the initial ChatGPT. And actually, in speaking of just general AI and the applications and use cases, I want to do a quick fun demo before we get into some of the other technical stuff. And for this demo, we're going to need 5 people in the audience who want to be identified as a celebrity by our small vision model, right? So this is just an example of some of the open source LLMs we're going to be showing today. So let me show you what the actual application is.
Just 5 of you just step down. There's no need to.
Yeah, if you want to join us on stage. We have some swag for you.
Yes.
Right. So one of the applications, right, that we've all used models, is going to be this type of vision model, right?
Perfect. Yes.
So what I have over here is using Ramalama. Who here has heard of Ramalama?
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Nice.
wow. That's crazy. Y'all are all my people. So with Ramalama, we're running two models, right? We're running a vision model, and we're also running a text-based instruct model. And this question that we're asking and we're prompting the model with is, hey, what celebrity do they look like?
I see Leonardo DiCaprio.
So I'll go first, and then whoever wants to come next, join me.
Justin Bieber.
All right. Justin Bieber, I'll take that. All right, hop in here with us.
Patty, who's that? Purple lanyard. Just another Justin
You might
Bieber.
all be Justin Bieber. Nice. All right, Anish, what are we thinking here?
Dr. Seuss.
David Beckham.
Beckham, yes, perfect.
Hey, Sally.
Yeah.
Let's see what we're working with.
Jenna. Eva Longoria. Woo.
Yeah.
Lady Gaga.
Let's see what we're working with. Steve Jobs.
Come on,
All right, Boris.
Colin Firth. Whoa.
Tom Cruise. All right, give him a round of applause.
Thank you, and feel free to grab a pen from here before you go.
Yeah, feel free to grab your swag up here. So even as you saw that diagram of the technology changing throughout the years, AI is not going to take your job yet. Don't worry. Don't worry about it. And a quick shout out here to Ramalama. If you haven't used it before and you want to use local models, highly recommend. Oh, come on, update? It's okay. Highly recommend that you check out the project. Very easy CLI to use, and you can download models from Hugging Face, from Olama, any OCI registry. So definitely check it out. They've got a session on it later. So great project here. It allows us to run these local models. But speaking of local models, right? We were talking about ChatGPT being widely adopted, but the big question is, we're at DevConf, right? This is the open source conference where we all gather, speak on our projects, and speak about the future of open source.
Yeah, so what about open source?
Yeah, that's a great question, Carol, because there's a need for open source AI as well, right? Because organizations and engineers like us, we trust open source because we can vet the code, because we have a community of people working on it, contributing to it. And it's quite similar for AI, right? We need that transparency and accessibility, the security of models that have been vetted, right? Of governance, right? Not having just a few players in the field, but allowing everyone to have a seat at the table for AI. And so there's a Linux Foundation survey of, hey, how many of you are concerned about openness in models if you're developing Gen AI solutions? And 80% of everyone said, hey, we are quite concerned. Security is a big concern. And almost everybody wants there to be a neutral governance for AI models, right? So it's quite important. And the thing is, open models haven't always been on par, right? A lot of us might have used open source models in the past. Things have changed a lot recently, but this was a slide from Neuromagic, which is a big contributor to VLLM, talking about, hey, why is open source lagging behind closed source when it comes to ChatGPT and other similar proprietary models? But things have changed, right, Carol?
Yeah, and the good news is open source is catching up. As we go in the last 2 years, more and more open models, well, for various definitions of open, but they have been, more open and more permissive as time goes by. So it's a good trend, definitely. And as Cedric said earlier, they were not as performant as the proprietary models, but they have now become on par with proprietary models, and even in some cases, surpassing those proprietary models. So that's definitely good news. The other good news is that Neuromagic is now part of Red Hat. So we have these experts with us working on the openness of AI and models in general. So open source, besides providing ways to innovate to make things more performant, it also provides transparency. And that's an important thing in technology, in everything we do, and also in AI. So understanding model architecture and training data is very crucial to everything we do in AI. The LF AI and Data Foundation has this model openness framework, which provides a model openness tool, which helps you to evaluate and categorize how open certain models are. You can check it out. It's at isitopen.ai, very easy to remember URL. And there's already some models there. You can see how they are performing. There's like 3 different classifications. The baseline is open model, then they have open tooling, and then open science as the kind of the most open. So they have like, from the data sets to the pre-processing code, everything's open. So definitely check it out. The other thing about open source, which kind of is close and dear to my heart, is providing learning opportunities. Here we are at the Brno University of Technology, attending an open source conference. It's very kind of, appropriate association. Open source and learning has always been a very, goes hand in hand, I think. I learned about Linux in my university days more than 20 years ago. I'm dating myself here, but I was in Singapore initially, so we had Singapore Linux user groups, SLUGs. I love that acronym. And then I went over to Texas to study at the University of Texas at Dallas and joined the Linux user groups there as well. Learned a lot about, just trying things out. And that's one of the best ways to learn, right, is to just kind of get your hands on with things. And recently, we have been using InstructLab as one of those tools to help different institutions to learn about what it means to customize a large language model, what it means to inference with one and things like that. And these are some of the feedback we've got, that they love the hands-on approach. They can get a better understanding of that process and open source through that, being able to access open tools and open projects to be able to do that. So this initiative has been, we started it in August last year, and we've already had it with University of Denver in April this year. The next up is in University of Exeter in UK, and there's interest in universities across the globe. So I think this is a really cool way of, InstructLab is just an example, but there's a lot of things we learn with open source projects and open source in general.
Absolutely.
All right, Cedric, let's get practical. How do we use these open models?
That's a great question. So let's learn real quick, because as engineers, as developers, operations in this room, there's a journey that everyone goes through when you're using, building, and deploying these Gen AI applications, right? Whether it's in your IDE, it's a code editor assistant, right? You're maybe using a local model there. Or you're trying to deploy something on Kubernetes, scale it up with VLLM. We're going to see demos of all of this in the next few minutes. So we'll start off with ideation and prototyping. Hey, where do I get started? What do I begin with? How do I benchmark to? Hey, how do I connect to my data? How do I build agentic applications with maybe tool calling, for example? And how do I evaluate this? To then operationalizing. How do I actually put this into production? I need the authentication, and I need monitoring. I need all of these tools that maybe Kubernetes provides with Prometheus, Grafana, and Jaeger, and much more. So let's hop in this. What we're going to be showing today is this new AI model lifecycle. A lot of us are used to CI/CD for deploying our applications. This is what you could consider LLM ops, for example. So this is the process of, hey, model development and also model inference. So creating a model that can do great things and adding your data to that, and then inferencing that and actually getting the real value out of it. So this is what's known as this AI engineering field, which is quickly, developing, and so you're going to be an AI engineer by the end of this session. So let's hop in and let's begin with customizing a model, right?
Yeah.
So there's no need to reinvent the wheel from scratch. Previously, we were using and pre-training our own models. Now we can go to Ollama, download a model, or we can download one from Hugging Face and start to customize it. So the process kind of is going from these registries, maybe it's Hugging Face, for example, downloading a model and customizing that with our data. But our data, maybe it's in PDFs, Jira, Confluence, wherever we're pulling our sources from, we need to convert that into a format that is ready for AI. And then we customize that model, and let's go ahead and see that.
Yeah, and one of the ways, there's several different methods, and some of you probably have heard of a few of these. So one of the ones we started with, as I mentioned, InstructLab, is a great way to get started. And before we get into InstructLab, why do we want to customize a model? Right? There's so many cool large language models doing all kinds of cool stuff. But the fact of using these really large language models and general large language models, they are usually expensive to operate, and also they may not give you that kind of specific domain knowledge that you need for your use cases. So think of it, as the saying goes, jack of all trades, master of none. So you need something sometimes that is trained on your specific knowledge that you want to be able to answer questions for you and do things for you. So we've had POC testing with InstructLab, customizing language models, maybe not even like large, but medium and smaller language models with private company data, and they have actually seen a great increase in the quality of the output as well as reduction in cost, which is another factor to consider, another important factor. So how does InstructLab work to do that? You want to show the demo along with this?
Yeah, we can do that, but I'll let you kind of briefly explain it as I pull it up.
Yeah, so InstructLab utilizes what is called a taxonomy-based representation of knowledge and data, knowledge and skills that you want to train and customize models with. This kind of taxonomy, hierarchical-based data helps you visualize very easily what's already available and what are missing, and you want to fill in the gaps of the missing knowledge, for example. So here, Cedric has pulled up an example Q&A file, which gives some seed questions and answer pairs to be able to let the teacher model be able to know how to generate, using synthetic data generation, much larger quantities of data, because you need a large amount of data to be able to train a model to be able to influence it and make changes to it. So here's...
We can also show the synthetic data process actually as well. With having this data already, we can do a diff, make sure that we have it there. And down here, I'll go ahead and kick off this process. So remember, we started from some seed training data curated by humans, right? And what we're doing is we're using a model that's running locally on our machine, right? So nothing is leaving the premise in order to generate this synthetic data. And if we had maybe 15 more minutes, we would show the whole process. Yeah. But that's kind of just a quick gist of using InstructLab. It's a CLI, but also a library that you could use, say, in your Jupyter notebooks as a data scientist to do this synthetic data generation.
Yep. And after we get this large quantity of data, we also want to make sure that it's good data, it's quality data. So we don't, as you say, garbage in, garbage out. We want to make sure that they don't contain too much unnecessary stuff. So we use a critic model to filter that and make sure the quality is good and check for correctness and things like that. And then that good set of data will be used for training the model.
Yeah, absolutely. But let's say we don't want to go through that whole process and we just want to add our enterprise data to a model itself, right? We're not changing the model, just adding it in the context window. So that's where RAG comes in, and I'm sure many of us have used RAG before in a simple way to, query our documents, chat with a PDF, for example. But the thing is, your data probably isn't AI ready, right? It's in PDFs, it's in HTML, it's in websites, it's photos, it's graphs, it's documents, all things that could be tough for an AI to read. So if we were to try to do a PyPDF parse for a PDF like this, probably would end up like this, where we're not preserving the structure of the page, right? Things are truncated. If there's a page break, then something could be split in half entirely. And then when you use this in RAG, you get these weird answers back because of how you split the text and you chunked and vectorized that text into the database. So it's fast, but it's not fit for a lot of use cases. So what we do is we use this project called Docling. It's open source from IBM Research, where instead of going by simply OCR, it's a combination of OCR, vision models, and some other techniques in order to parse these pages and assemble a document format in pandas that you can actually use for your AI applications. So let's go ahead and see how this works real quick. And to do so, I will show you really quickly the document that we're going to be parsing. So it's a simple PDF. I'll go over to my desktop and show you this annual report from some organization that has a lot of different values, a lot of different columns, headers, even a chart like this. And so when I go over here, and I'll just do a clear and parse this with Docling. So you could use this in your applications as a library, for example, or you could use it from the CLI, or even install it on Kubernetes and parse thousands of documents. What's actually happening in the background, and I'll just go to the presentation, is essentially the values are being extracted from OCR, but also these vision models so that we have a direct representation of, hey, exactly where this text is. So maybe I have sensitive data, I could remove that. And then when we actually go to do, let's see, I'm entering Vim, so this might be scary. Yeah, I'm never getting out of here. All right, so when we actually go to the output here, we can see that all of the data was preserved in the format that is originally intended for it. So we have all these headers, titles, and when we get down here to the actual chart, we can see it preserve the layout as well. So maybe we also have images that we could run through that vision language model from earlier and get the annotations for that. So quite cool way to be able to parse our data, and you end up being able to keep that structured output, and it's cost effective at scale. So quite an easy and fun way to be able to do this customization. Okay, and we also had a training an audio model, but we might have to skip that because our models are awesome, right? But what do we actually do with that? So we talked about the left. Let's show the right real quick, where you actually inference the model using maybe one of these runtimes and actually build out the cool agentic features that you might want to check out. So as we know, running a large language model can be difficult, especially at scale. You've got the infrastructure cost, you've got the complexities in running different models on different infrastructure. And here you can actually see that this is the chart of the past few years where we're charting essentially the model size, right, the number of parameters, and the memory that is allocated in these GPUs.
Yeah, and actually the model size is on log scale, logarithmic scale, which means that even though the GPU memory is increasing linearly at a steady rate, but exponentially for the model size. So
right.
We need that.
So our infrastructure capabilities are grossly under the model sizes that we have to run.
Right.
For example, that's the leaked parameter size of GPT-4 that Jensen Yang actually accidentally showed at one of his conferences. So fortunately, there's this project that's becoming the Linux of VLLM, right?
Yeah, VLLM is pretty cool. It's easy to use. It supports a bunch of different hardware accelerators, as well as different. You can use it to inference with different model families. It's kind of like the Linux, as Cedric said, because as we know, Linux runs on different hardware, different vendors' hardware, and supports different packaging, distros, and desktops, and so on. So
exactly. And so it powers model optimization not only as an inference server, but through different projects such as Guide LLM for evaluating performance, eval harness to say, hey, is this the right output from this prompt, and LLM compression tools, because we are able to do quantization where you essentially reduce the numerical precision of a model that saves up to 4 times on it saves on resource requirements, but also inference speed as well. So if you want to check out the project, please do. But what I also want to talk about, as we have just a few minutes left, is once we have a model server, what about the AI-enabled applications? So everyone's heard of agentic AI. I won't speak too much about it, but there's agents and there's workflows that allow us to work with, for example, our databases, to call APIs, and to do much more than just be a chatbot, right? These models have been trained on calling functions. And so I'll actually kind of show this real quick by also introducing Llama Stack. So let's say we have an inference server. We want to build that agentic AI application. What we would do traditionally is maybe use LangGraph to call those functions. But then let's say I also need monitoring, and I also need guardrails so that people aren't asking the model crazy questions. Well, what I'm going to do here is put this all together by showing you here Podman Desktop. So Podman Desktop has an extension called the Podman AI Lab. And what this allows us to do is to spin up a Llama Stack instance. So not only do we have, for example, Llama running our containers, we also have a Llama Stack to be able to test against all of these APIs. And when I talk about APIs, there are really quite a few here that I can show you. For example, telemetry, shields, evaluations. So as a developer, I can use all of these. And so, for example, I could use one of these function calling recipes in order to build out a function calling app. So, hey, I want to retrieve the weather in Brno. I could do that here. But what I also want to show you is that, hey, once I have this running in a container, what I can do is deploy this on, for example, OpenShift on top of Kubernetes. So I'm going to run through this here as a pre-recorded demo just because we've done a lot of live ones. And what I have here is Llama Stack running with MCP servers. So MCP as a way to standardize our APIs and pull this all together in a standardized fashion so that, hey, you have a front end calling the the client, and the client's calling these servers, accessing our database and CRM. So I'll open this up here. We can see we have these available models being served on VLLM locally. And if I ask a question using these MCP servers, say review the current opportunities, generate PDF, we're able to do the tool calls and retrieve all this information. Right? On the back end, what's powering this is we have VLM running our models using Kserve, right? Now, we could also use LLMD, for example, but once we have this running, we could also, say, add new models and be able to monitor, hey, what's happening, also use Jaeger to monitor that as well. So, we had to speed run that demo a little bit, but, that puts together Llama Stack, that puts together VLM, and allows us to scale up these AI applications. Yep. And so we'll have these slides available later if you want to see exactly how this process works. Now, what's next for the community?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think a lot of times when we talk about AI, some people are skeptical, and rightfully for a good reason. We are working, we as in Red Hat, working with a lot of different open foundations and organizations. For example, with the Linux Foundation, we are championing the security baseline standards to make sure that we want to strengthen security for all of us. Eclipse Foundation, a very important one, is the Cyber Resilience Act. And I won't speak more about it because we're running out of time, but do attend Roman's talk at 11 o'clock today. He will go into details about a lot of these different initiatives and collaboration. So this XKCD just came to mind when I was preparing for this because it's kind of silly to have to depend on like an individual person. It's also not a good idea to depend on individual or single organizations, companies, or groups like that to define all of this. That's why we need collaboration. We need openness and be able to support each other with open source, open development, and collaboration. That's how we better make things more safe, more secure for everyone involved. And again, there's more. Those are just some examples. There's more that our product security works with different open forums to make these happen. A lot of work is being done, but there's more that we need to do. You want to mention quickly?
And one last plug is LLMD. But the thing is, it's now time for your DevConf adventure. So there's a lot of sessions. Thank you. And one last mention is that there's a lot of sessions out there. Find what you're interested in. And the last thing we want to say is it's possible because of you and the community.
The community.
Have a great time.
Thank you all so much. Thanks for your time.